What's up, you guys? Welcome to the Great American Film Off, the podcast which you hear every first and third Friday of each month.
Yes,
but this
indeed.
this month, we're getting it the second and third Fridays of the month. So 2 weeks in a row, we're back for another show. It's gonna be a grand old time. Here's my co-host, Krosby Roza. How you doing, buddy?
Ahoy!
Buddy? Ooh,
Yeah.
I'm tripping all over my words today. I called you muddy. I've been
No worries,
tripping all over my words, but
things are
yeah.
good. Things are good. You know, after last week's show, we were discussing that In the Heights had just come out. So for this week's show, we decided to take it to a place near and dear to our hearts and our minds, and we decided to go with what is the most iconic movie musical.
That's right. And you know, iconic, we decided to confine it to iconic because picking just best movie musical, I mean, how do you just pick one? You know,
It's a broad topic.
It's very broad. So we figured, well, we could define it to a decade or we can confine it to a century. But then we were like, you know what? No, let's just go overall just most iconic, because then it kind of ropes in influence and then also the filmmaking and also the legacy.
Exactly.
Yeah, and movie musicals. So obviously musicals won't count, but again, it only helps if they have spawned futures with, like, you know, Broadway musicals and other stuff, which we'll get to, obviously. Or originated from Broadway musicals, some of them. So how the show works, we set a topic, we each pick our own movie. Whoever lost the last match, being myself, will go first, and then Krosby will go second. If I take the pick that Krosby wanted, Krosby will have to fight his backup, but you know, I think there are a lot to choose from that will be okay.
There are a lot of
way.
fish out there.
And what we do is we break it down into 5 rubric points. And what happens is every rubric point, we decide who best or what in the movie best represents that rubric point. We kind of argue it out a little bit, but a very peaceful debate, if you will, not really an argument. And then we decide the winner for each bracket point or each rubric point. And the first person to 3 gets the win, gets the film off for the week. So the goal is to get to 3. Last week, Krosby swept it. He got the first 3, and he had it done, sealed.
It was an honor.
Signed, sealed, delivered. But I ended up getting the next 2 points. We did Tom Hanks movies. Go check it out. It was a great show. This week, of course, we are doing movie musicals. So Krosby, why don't you take us through the bracket? Sorry, I keep saying bracket. Sports are on the mind all over my mind. So take us through the rubric of this show.
For sure, buddy. So most iconic movie musical. For the first rubric point, we got the Dylan Dance Award. I mean, when you think of a musical, you're predominantly thinking of singing, dancing, acting type stuff. And I think particularly if we're saying iconic, then we're saying one that has had a somewhat profound influence on other forms of the genre. So that's number 1. Number 2, we got the Krosby Krooner Award, Krooner with a K, because obviously. This is going to be more specific to the singing element of the musical, because specifically with the older musicals, like I think both probably Dylan and I will be looking at, they didn't have all the technology necessarily figured out right away. So,
right.
You know, it's important. Number 3, you got the Showstopper Award. That's for basically overall performance. There are a ton of amazing singers, amazing dancers out there. But I think both of us are looking for something more that incorporates the different elements into some would say a triple threat type piece, but just in general, a performance worthy of watching, one that doesn't make you yawn or reach for your channel changer. Then we got the Head Turner Award, specifically for movie musicals. They've had a real impact on the next in the series. These shows were so popular at one point in time that they were turned into movies. And then the movies were popular enough to really keep the shows going for a bit longer, which is why you have that boom of Broadway shows in like 70s, 80s.
Right.
But enough
and
of that.
also, you know, we did make it most iconic movie musical because the influence is so important. And lastly, our constant.
The constant. The Netflix and Chex mix scale. This is, you know, would you want to show it to people? Is it one you can rewatch yourself? What is the general rewatchability/viewability of this piece?
Yeah, and, you know, movie musicals, I'd say generally are fairly rewatchable, but which one is going to be more rewatchable? We will see. So those are our 5 rubric points. Excellently done, Krosby. Couldn't have done it better myself. because I have been very bad with speaking today, so I'm very glad I didn't have to do it by myself. So I lost the last one pretty triumphantly.
Let's hear it, you scallywag.
So movie musicals. Anyone who knows me well enough in terms of film sense knows my favorite movie of all time is a movie musical. It is the one that I brought up as an honorable mention when we were talking about Oscar snubs, but ultimately I did go for some, different, more, variety, if you will, for picks for that one. But I had to go with the one, the only. Is it raining outside? I don't know, but I'm singing in the rain, and it's one of those things where I had to think, okay, I'm arguing the most iconic, not necessarily my favorite, but I'm like, but it's it kind of covers both grounds for me, at least. I know there were so many to choose from, and I actually listed like at least 10 options, but at the end I just was like, I can't go against my heart for this one, and if I lose, I will lose fighting for a film that I thoroughly love so much that it was most iconic in my life, most iconic I think of all time. But Krosby, I'm very excited to hear what Singing in the Rain will be going against. Will there be clear skies? Will there be more rain? And anything? I'm very excited to hear what your pick is. Krosby, take it away.
We're a couple of throwback boys because I kind of assumed that you were going to go with Singing in the Rain. And to be honest, it was the first thought that I had as well. Then I said to myself, no, wait a moment. I've got the piece I'll be using. The one and only, originally East Side Story, West Side Story.
West Side Story. That a beautiful pick as well.
Oh, what a movie. If you haven't watched West Side Story recently, you need to go home. You need to throw it on. You need to sit down. You need to watch it. You need to watch the whole thing. Because that movie is really excellent. It's... I think it's one not unlike Singing in the Rain that because of its age is almost forgotten. Though it's acknowledged as a brilliant film, I think that people don't really talk about this movie as much as they should these days. And one thing that I think is very interesting with the Spielberg West Side Story coming out pretty soon, I'm very interested to see how much of it is an homage to the original, one of the greatest movies ever made.
Right.
And how much of it is going to be like a Spielberg-y little picture.
It'll be interesting because a lot of the times, a lot of the times when the musical comes before the movie, sometimes the movie doesn't live up to the musical.
True.
And often when the movie comes before the musical, no worries because the movie paved the way. But when you're remaking a movie that was already a musical, I believe, before.
Yes, it was. Mm-hmm.
And now you're remaking the movie remake of the musical. It's like there's a lot of expectation. But again, if you're going to give it to anyone, Steven Spielberg is probably the guy to do it.
He's the guy. He's the guy.
Especially because also we'll take into account back then, the times were different. And I think, there are improvements to be made in some areas, just politically and socially, for both these movies if they were remade today, which is good too. So it's also getting a more modern lens take. But we are arguing the classic West Side Story versus the, in my mind, incomparable, but in this case, very comparable, Singing in the Rain. It's going to be very easy and very hard to compare these two because honestly, this was my... I was toying around with 3 of them, and ultimately I went with Singing in the Rain, but West Side Story was right up there as my number 2 or 3, along with a certain tornado weather, Wizard of Oz up there as well. But as always, we will get to your poll answers at the end of the show. So we did get fabulous, amazing recommendations as well in there, which we will talk about at the end of the show. But right now, it's Singing in the Rain, West Side Story. Let's go to my favorite award, the Dylan Dance Award. Krosby, why don't you take us away first?
the Dylan Dance Award. What a good time. So part of the thing that is great about West Side Story is that it uses dance in a way that is highly diegetic. So it tells the story through the dance. And this is a thing that kind of every choreographer pretends to do, but that I think maybe 5 or 6 actually do really well. And obviously Drum Rom's one of them. But I think that specifically, it's actually something that it has in common with the movie Newsies, which is that it uses this really athletic style of dance to convey movement, and it doesn't feel like dance. And I think that that's really important because sure, you're watching a musical, you know it's a musical, but I think that if it felt too dancey, it would take you out of the violence.
Right.
I adore the recording of Hamilton. I think it's fantastic. That being said, there are times where the dance that's going on takes me out of what's happening in the story.
Yeah.
There is not one time in West Side Story where that occurs. And I think that that is unique for a film that leans so heavily on dance, particularly in an era where the movie musical was a staple and the dance number of the movie musical went without saying.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. And again, you said the violence. I mean, West Side Story is not always your cheery, happy, everyone's going to dance together in harmony and in happiness and joyfulness. It is very much of that like angst and that rivalry and that tension and that built up of heat.
Yeah, it's great. It's Romeo and Juliet. Yeah, what's not to love?
Exactly. And we'll get into that a little later too when we talk probably about the actual like influence part of it. You know, we'll talk all about the Shakespeareanness of it too. Singing in the Rain. I mean, a lot of people just say, "Oh, it's a bunch of tap dancing." But, I mean, you look at what they put on top of the tap dancing, and I think that's what's so beautiful is you have, you know, the Fit as a Fiddle, where they're literally playing violins and fiddles as they're tap dancing on their knees sometimes, crouched down, squatting. Then you've got other numbers, you know, Gene Kelly dancing in literal puddles of water. I know it's not real rain. It's obviously fabricated, but, you know, you've got other elements there. Make Him Laugh. He's, you know, Donald O'Connor has this whole set behind him where he's literally like dancing on the walls and stuff. So while the tap dancing, yes, it's a very, you know, uniform style, I think they take it to new levels and new heights, and each number does feel distinctly unique because, you know, everyone knows like there are basic steps in tap that every song kind of has and every song hits on, but it's the environment they set the tap dancing to and the other things they add to it. I think that really elevates it as well. I mean, just some of the best dancing you'll see and some of the quickest dancing. I mean, it's you know, you and I both know, like, it's hard sometimes to move your feet that quick, and they do it so well. They do it almost so effortlessly that it doesn't register at first how easy it is for these actors, and it's not easy. That's the thing, but they make it seem so easy because of the way they deliver it. So yeah, I mean, the tap dancing is just iconic. Of course, usage of the environment as well as the tap dancing, and I do think. Like you said, how it conveys the violence, I think there's also a lot of emotion to convey through the dancing here because there is a lot of that idea of, you know, trying to break new ground with, you know, sound in film, but also, you know, because this is a movie celebrating sound in film, you know, the tap sounds are so crucial and vital into emphasizing why that's so beautiful. And that, the Broadway melody number, which so many people are like, oh, it's so long, it takes up so much of that second half of the movie, why is it there? I think it's really there as a celebration of the art form and just what we can do with dance and the stories we can tell. And yes, it might not make as much sense with the plot, the overall plot. It might not need to be there. If you take it out, it's the same story. But I think it only adds to it, you know, because West Side Story has dance breaks like that too, where it's like, do they necessarily need to be there to move the story along? No, but does it enrichen the tone? Does it enrichen? Exactly, it enrichens the characters, it enrichens the tone. It shows off why the dance is so integral, which I love. So
I agree.
Amazing.
I don't know. I feel like for this one, we almost have to flip because I feel like they're so comparable in that each one of their styles is revolutionary in its own way. Right. But you're also dealing with a completely truly almost opposite realms of musical theater. You have more of a jazz modern. And then on the other side, you have tap, full like musical theater dance.
Yeah, and even when the numbers are a little slower and they're not as fast, like the beginning of Singing in the Rain, and you know some of the beautiful duets and the lovely moments, you know,
even
the lighter moments,
parts of the Broadway melody.
Exactly, they still really go full out with those dances too. So I'm fine flipping a coin for this one specifically because I do think it is a worthy tie, if you will. So if you've never seen us do the show before, we ask Siri to be our third judge. If we are tied, if we cannot sway one another, which I will not be able to sway Mr. Krosby from his Fosse roots, and he will not be able to sway me. So here we go. Siri, flip a coin. It's me this time. It's heads. Yes, I'm
Lord,
always heads.
it's
Crosby's
me.
always tails. I get that first point. Bing, bang, boom. 1-0. I'm sorry to do it to you this early, Crosby, but
it's okay.
I love getting that first point. Last week I went 3 in a row with Siri siding with you, so I'm glad she finally decided to give me a
He's
bone.
back like Jordan.
So here's the next award, the Krosby Krooner. So now we're taking a step away from the dance and let's look at the song. The music itself, the singing itself in the film. Krosby, tell me about West Side Story.
So here's the important thing I think about West Side Story. Number one, fantastic music. Fantastic. Leonard Bernstein's young Stevie Sando. Killing it, okay? Doing great things. That being said, I will say I think that there is a difference between the instrumental parts of West Side Story and the singing parts of West Side Story. Imagine, right? But I will say I think that the instrumental portions really, I do think kind of changed cinema in a way, because they so effectively tell the little bits of the story that you kind of need telling and can't anymore from the Broadway version. You know what I mean? Because
right, the whole Mambo sequence is like my favorite thing in the world. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, there's just so much incredible stuff. The like you're saying, the opening it might be my favorite musical opening of all time, with the whistle. That's like if I told my mom, if the new West Side Story doesn't start with the whistle, I'm taking my TV and I'm throwing it over the overpass. Not okay. But then when it comes to the singing is really beautiful. And the singing, I think, is really important to the tone of the show, keeping it somewhat light. You have some of those amazing Russ Tamblyn numbers that have switched up from the original musical, but I specifically want to shout out Marnie Nixon.
Okay.
Because Marnie Nixon is the singing voice of Maria.
Right.
She's also the singing voice of Eliza Doolittle in My Fair Lady. And this woman is behind some of the really incredible vocal performances when some of these actresses were not vocally trained.
Right.
For instance, Natalie Wood and
Audrey Hepburn, yeah,
vocally trained for those roles. So she stepped in to do them, and she sounds phenomenal.
And it's interesting because in the test of time, which we'll talk about a little in Legacy and the Head Turner, I don't feel like she's as brought up as much as Audrey Hepburn and Natalie Wood, which is unfortunate, I think.
Yeah. No, I agree. But tell me about the fine trio that you're dealing with.
Of course. So here's the thing. I will first preface, Singing in the Rain, as iconic as the dance numbers are, and Siri agrees, I think the singing is in the title, and I do think a lot of the movie is about the idea of letting, those who have the beautiful voices shine. We just talked about it, like, with you, with dubbing, and I think this was one of the first movies, even before West Side Story came out, that was like, no, like, let the people who are singing have the spotlight. Like, we're in a new era now, and I think that's one of the most beautiful things, is that it's not just well sung, the show, or the movie, if you will, but it's, almost the main theme and the heart of the film is it's about the idea of singing and, letting your voice be heard. So it's more than just the sounds. It's the actual thematic root of the movie. The idea of sound and singing and letting your voice be heard.
Yeah.
And Debbie Reynolds, I mean, her voice is just magnificent, and it just reels you in from the first note she sings. It's very soft but very sweet. Especially, the dichotomy between her and then, the actress who is not a trained singer. And when she tries to do the speaking and the singing, and she's got the voice and she's whining, and like everyone's like, no. I mean, I think it's great that they put so much effort into making her so bad, and so in a good way, like hilariously bad, that Debbie Reynolds shines even more. I mean, Gene Kelly, as great of a dancer as he is, he's just got such a beautiful, soulful voice. And that's the thing. None of these voices are going to be voices that like will win American Idol or win The Voice and like hit you over the head with like, oh my God, like riffs and belts and all that. That's not what it's about. It's about these simple harmonies, but it's delivering these simple harmonies well. And even Donald O'Connor, who is more in it for the dancing, his Make 'Em Laugh, he's doing that dance. He was, I mean, I have a behind the scenes story. He was a heavy smoker, and he's smoked a lot back then, and they had him do a whole take because they did it all in one take, that song. He was very exhausted. They make him do it again, and he had an attack or something,
Yeah.
some sort of
Wow.
respiratory issue where he had to be rushed to the hospital right after he performed the number twice. And the first 2 takes, that's all they had to use for the actual footage of the movie. So he did 2 takes and he was out of there on a stretcher. He fortunately lived through it. But, you know, as good as we may say Gene Kelly and Debbie Reynolds' voices are, I think his voice, to have that stamina to get through that song on its own, no matter how good or bad it sounds, to just get through it is a miracle. It's like, it almost reminds me of a David Diggs in Hamilton, where it's like Guns and Chips is all spoken. There's no singing to it, but it's the rhythm and the actual speed and just getting through that spit of words. It's more impressive than any wrong note or pitchiness could you know, get in the way of, you know. So it's 3 very different styles of singing, and they're never going to be the voices that knock you over the head with it. But I think there's almost something more beautiful about that, just being who you are and singing how you sing from the soul, not necessarily needing to be this standout singer. So
absolutely. You know, well, you've swayed me, Dill. I
have.
Because here's the thing. I think that West Side Story is phenomenal. It's amazing. That being said, it is a movie musical that was polished and polished and polished and polished. And that's amazing. That being said, you lose something from the original musical type performance when you polish it to that extent. I think part of the brilliant thing, like you're saying, about Singing in the Rain is that Singing in the Rain kind of uses the apparatus of singing and its place in the story to help tell the story through song.
Right.
So not only is it just magnificent singing performances all around, the music also informs the performances. So I think you took this one, Bill.
Wow. 2-0. I'm 2-0. This is rare territory in the recent shows here. But now we're getting the Showstopper Award. This is focused on the performances. We can group it all as you know, an ensemble, or we can focus on one performer. What do you want to do, Krosby?
So the way I was thinking about it was basically like overall, like as a group, the performances that you get.
I think that's fair. Yeah.
Yeah. They're good. They're solid. I think that the movie of West Side Story, it's an old movie. You know what I mean? Like, it's very old. It's from the 60s.
Yeah.
That being said, I think that it still feels very honest. And I think that a big part of that is how fresh the Broadway show was, in a way. But I think another part of that is just that we hadn't really hit that huge wave of kind of postmodern-y movie musicals, you know, like Chorus Line and, you know, Cabaret. And exactly, and all those that start coming out. So I think that the interesting thing about West Side Story's cast performance is that it's really necessary. If you don't have that whole cast with Snowboy and Baby John and Anybody's and Bernardo and Chino and all the Sharks and all the Jets and all the ladies who all do incredible stuff, you don't have a show anymore. Right. Whereas I do think, and this will segue us into yours, you can tell me what you think. I feel like if you got those 3 really strong in Singing in the Rain, which obviously you do, given the cast, I think the rest of the show can pretty much pull along. What do you think? Yeah,
well, you bring up a good point that yours is so ensemble heavy that if it's just Tony and Maria without everyone else, it's like it's just a love story, you know, and it's a beautiful love story, but it's like it's because of the colorful ensemble of characters that's really what elevates it. When you think of West Side Story, you think of the group of guys doing the snapping and the dancing. You don't think of, I mean, obviously you think of Tony and Maria on the balcony and stuff, but it's you think of, if the first image comes to mind, it's a group of people dancing. Whereas Singing in the Rain, it's the 3 of them in their yellow coats dancing along, and there's something great about it. But I think it's easier to work as an ensemble when it's such a tiny ensemble. And I do have to bring up Jean Hagen as Lena Lamont as well, even though she's not one of the 3 singers or dancers. But as we said, like, she is so good at being so bad.
Yes.
She's a villain that we're not meant to like hate because she's like evil. But
no,
she's just selfish.
The worst.
And she's relatable because she's selfish, because we've all worked with those people, especially in show business. Me and you have worked with those people in the same show even. So, but yeah, like the people who are just divas and just, you know, sometimes just override everything and make everything miserable. But
yeah,
I think they make her so funny that it's like you roll your eyes at her, but you're also like, oh, that's hilarious. And then obviously the three leads, I mean, like I said, with Donald O'Connor, with the actual stamina of being able to dance, sing while you are a heavy smoker. Back then, it was more accepted because no one knew it could kill you. So like, it was common practice for people to smoke. I think if you put up any other guy, maybe even from this ensemble, if you make Gene Kelly make him laugh, I don't know if he gets through it like Donald O'Connor can. And Debbie Reynolds, she learned to dance for this movie. You know, she was not. And that's unreal. That'd be like telling me that Lin-Manuel Miranda learned to speak and then he wrote Hamilton in the same year. It's like, no,
exactly.
Like that's not how it works. You know,
that's
he's been living
with
I know we keep bringing up Hamilton because it's like the newer, more relatable thing that everyone can kind of like understand what we're saying if they haven't seen these movies. Right. If you haven't seen Singing in the Rain or West Side Story, please go watch it. But in order to understand what we're saying,
West Side Story, please go see Hamilton.
Yes. But we hope Hamilton can help you understand what we are talking about for our movies. But I think just the sheer talent amongst those three is so good, but I'm almost leaning toward giving it to you just because it is such a big group effort. There's just
it's an ensemble performance, you know?
Yeah, I mean, like who if you had to single out, like who would be your favorite performer? I'm just curious. This doesn't affect the point, but
I really do adore Russ Tamblin's performance as Riff.
Mm-hmm.
I think he doesn't do too much, and I think that it's one of those parts that pulls towards doing too much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Natalie Wood is excellent. I think she does a really nice job as Maria, honestly.
Yeah, I know we knocked her earlier because she doesn't sing her stuff, but
but
I mean, back then again, that was common practice. I mean, you didn't have
wasn't uncommon, exactly.
Every movie wasn't Singing in the Rain where they were trying to literally make a commentary about it. If there were dubbed singers in Singing in the Rain, I think Singing in the Rain would be the biggest fraud movie of all time.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it would almost be a caricature of itself.
Right, it's like you got to practice what you preach, and I think it does it well. But there's nothing wrong at the time with doing that because the talent wasn't like, it's not like nowadays where you have 40, 50 people who probably could sing Maria and act it well, and it's finding the right one. And I'm very excited to see what Rachel Zegler does with the role.
Yeah, it's exciting.
She's got tough shoes to fill, but she is that triple threat. She does have the singing chops too. But I think Natalie Wood, for what she had, was just magnificent and gone too soon. If you ask me. I mean, a lot of these actors and actresses gone too soon. Just the time. But,
and also Rita Moreno. Rita Moreno is fantastic.
Yeah, who has a documentary coming out tomorrow. I guess today, if you're listening today.
Shout out to Rita.
I was going to say, this show is perfect. I'm glad you chose West Side Story because it almost fits along with, not just In the Heights, because that's out, but with Rita Moreno's documentary. So
all the pieces fit.
Crosby, you're getting the point there.
Oh, thank God.
1 to 2, so you're still in this. I still need to get my third point, or you can come back here with 3 in a row. We'll see. Let's talk about the head turner, Crosby. This is influence and iconography and all that jazz.
Yeah, I got a story for you. So my voice teacher saw the original production of West Side Story, and I believe that she saw it opening night.
Wow.
She said that after the show was over, there was this like really weird like energy, just like kind of in the crowd, where you were just like, oh shit. Like, what just happened? You know what I mean? Like, this change, it's like when you see a movie that kind of changes your idea of what movies are. Like, when I saw Parasite, I was like, oh my God, I'm a grown-ass man, and I thought I knew what movies were. But Jin just schooled me.
Oh, yeah.
You know? And I think it can't be overstated that the impact that this had as a musical was enormous. But the impact that it had as a film was also enormous. I think it's partially responsible for ushering in this next big era of movies that we were talking about, like Cabaret and Chicago.
Well, because also, it's coming off of a well-respected musical, like you said, so there's pressure. There's almost more pressure on it to succeed and to live up to those heights. I mean, we've seen now with In the Heights coming out, everyone's first critique, if they've seen the musical, is, well, what did they change? What did they get rid of? What did they add?
Exactly, yeah.
And I think it's kind of the same thing here, where it's like, you have to stay faithful while also paving your own path. And I'd say it did a good job. I mean, it won Best Picture. It was a hit.
Absolutely.
It was a smash hit. So, yeah, I mean, like, in terms of iconography and influence, like, when we said most iconic movie musical, it's because we wanted this to be such an important point, the influence of it.
Absolutely.
And I think make a good point. Singing in the Rain.
Come on now, we got the 3 raincoats. It's one of the most iconic clips of all time.
And that's the thing is, I think this is the reason when people ask me why this is my favorite movie, period, I say because there are 2 parts of my heart, 2 things I love. It's movies and musicals. And this is, I think this is a very even love letter to both. And I think it's like embracing everything we love about musicals, but also embracing everything we love about the movies. You know, it's a movie musical that showcases the song so well, but the singing and dancing is to tell the story of history of film and how film has progressed. And I think that Broadway melody number, I love it so much because it is showing, look how far we've come in just how many years after The Jazz Singer was it? Like 20 or 30? And now we're doing these lush, amazing, colorful musical numbers. It's almost like the gotta dance is not anything about the plot. It's just, I've got to show how great this art form is, and it's a great celebration of what they were able to do with film in terms of visuals and costumes and sets. It was what they were able to do with the music. It's just a great marriage of both, and I think the whole film is great. It's a great homage to both film and musicals, and I think that's why it has such a great history and iconography in any person's film musicals list, because it progressed both film and musicals alike. And again, it didn't have necessarily the musical beforehand to kind of ride off of and, you know, help give them an inkling that this was going to succeed. They were just going in blind, hoping it would succeed. And honestly, it didn't have as much of a good reception at the time because American in Paris had just won the year before. And this year, it was like, oh, it's another musical, whatever. It didn't get nominated for anything except for, I think, 2 awards. I think, and of the actors, only Gene Hagen was nominated for supporting. None of the 3 main actors got nominated. The directors didn't. The movie didn't for Best Picture. So I don't think at the time it had that legacy cemented. But I think over time, more people have realized how influential it is on both art forms, musical and movie. So, yeah, it's not as an immediate success as yours, but I think over the test of time, it's still talked about. But I do think it's tough.
I think it's true. I think also, and you were kind of saying this by referencing the change from silent to talkies, it kind of bridges the gap between the two as a film. Like it allows an audience to actually see what it was like to transition, because that's an interesting thing that I don't think people think about a lot is when the technology changes, how do the artists have to change?
Right. It's a great history lesson. And we haven't talked about yours yet either, is the fact that yours is also a Shakespeare adaptation. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Yeah, because that's a big part of its influence and icon status as well.
Based on a play, you may have heard of it. It's called Romeo and Juliet. It's the tale of 2 star-crossed lovers. But no, it's I'll say I think that the reason that it works so well is that it is an adaptation that doesn't care too much about being honorable to the source material, which is exactly what Shakespeare would have wanted. You know what I mean?
And I do think that made other movies kind of follow suit. You know, you see The Lion King decades and decades later is like Hamlet.
1,000,000%.
And it's so loosely based on it. And it kind of, I think it harkens back to West Side Story and the fact that was the first movie that was really like, yeah, we have a source material, but this is our version. It's still going to be our own thing, but it does have its roots there as like an homage. I think we've seen a lot of films do this, you know, with Star Wars and Kurosawa films even. Like, it's not direct adaptations, but it is influences. And I think we saw so many more influences because of West Side Story. I think it paved the way for that as well.
It also, and you touched on this for a second, but it starts the proud tradition of changing bits of the musical for like apparently no reason. Like, I'm not even saying in a bad way, but like, for instance, in West Side, they change where Cool and Officer Krupke are in the show. It has a major impact on the flow of the show, and like a dead character by the time of the original Officer Krupke is the one singing it in the movie.
Right.
But and like that, I think that is interesting. Like,
and I think it's influential too.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's influential because it kind of said you don't have to necessarily stick to this mold. You can make an adaptation your own. Exactly.
Yeah. Like you were saying within the Heights, there are a bunch of changes from the source material, and I'm sure that they have their reasons, but not all of them are very clear. With some of them, it's like, oh, and now he's a widower. Interesting. And then you just kind of move on. You know what I mean? Like but I will say, I think that it's interesting that I will say, I feel like the start of that whole, we're keeping it in the show, but we're going to switch it around just because why not? I feel like it kind of starts with West Side in a way.
Yeah. So I think in terms of the actual medium of movie musicals, yours might be a little more iconic, but I think in terms of also just cinema itself, I think Singing in the Rain also has a great, influence as well. So it's very hard. I mean, this is, I kind of maybe want to do a series flip, but at the same time, I'm like, it's hard for me because I'm like, West Side Story, though, is like, I mean, that's like the start of almost a modern movie musical, even though it's not modern. It's kind of like that idea. What you
mean. It's
because I think Singing in the Rain, as great as it is, a lot of those musicals were similar in the fact that it's like everything's very kind of like joyful and bright and happy. And I think one of the things that West Side Story does interestingly is it takes it in a darker tone that I think was almost something that hadn't been seen, at least not a lot of at the time. You have of this era, you have like Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, which is like I think of that beautiful scene with all the costumes and everything's so beautiful and happy. Yeah, I love that show. And American in Paris, like there's like it's just stunning. It's just and even Wizard of Oz, like there are darker moments, but it's a childlike fantasy joy.
Definitely.
Mary Poppins, same thing. But like this feels just like we're doing something new with musicals. And I know they already had a musical, but like you said, with that audience vibe, I think if anyone hadn't seen the musical because they either couldn't afford it or couldn't get to New York somehow, they were watching it for the first time in the cinema because it came out not too long after, and they probably had that same feeling in the audience after the movie wrapped. They probably felt the same way because the source material and the actual story and the just the tone it takes is just so different. I mean, it's so dark. I mean, your main character dies at the end, and that was not common for any film, not even musicals, but film in general.
Especially not in musical.
Yeah, you see it in like international films, like, oh, there's a Japanese film where the lead dies, and it's like now it's like, oh yeah, the lead dies, great, cool. Yeah, I've seen it before.
People
who are
from America are very deep. we on the other hand like our main characters to live.
Yeah. So I'm almost swayed now to West Side Story because I think it kind of broke more ground just in terms of style and tone and just overall taking musicals into a new direction that we hadn't seen, where Singing in the Rain is the best example of the classic musical. I think West Side Story is a great example of what musicals could also be in addition to great song and dance.
It's true. But it's tough though, because like you're saying, in a way, Singing in the Rain is almost the best example of a classical musical. You know what I mean? Like, if I think of what is probably like the number one golden age type musical that I like, it's probably Singing in the Rain.
Oh yeah, it's like the epitome. Yeah, so it's tough. Are we going for what best represents that era, or what kind of paved the way?
I feel like that's the problem though, because we were like, we're doing iconic, and they're almost equally iconic in the opposite ways. Like one told us what musical theater was, and the other one was like, but this is what it could be.
I mean, I think you swayed me, but if I swayed you, we could flip.
We've swayed each other, but I still stand firmly on the West Side.
All right, so you're getting that point, Krosby. So it's 2-2. This is the match point right now. You made a little bit of a comeback. It was 2-0. Now it's 2-2. This is where I got to pull out all my guns and try to get this win.
Pull out the stops.
It's been a whole month of not getting one, so I got to try my best. But don't let that sway you. I want you to, fair fight. Rewatchability, how often you're inclined to show other people, how it's stood the test of time in terms of your own experience with it. Netflix and Chex Mix. Let's go.
If a person hasn't seen West Side Story, I'd be like, you have to see West Side Story. It's West Side Story. But I don't know if it's going to be like Saturday with the boys, and I'm like, hey, guys, like, I know we're chilling in tonight and getting some Zod. Do you want to fucking throw on West Side Story, man? Like, I don't know. I love West Side Story, but I feel like musicals are unique in that more than showing people the whole show, you're more apt to show, and movie musicals actually especially are like this. More than showing them the whole musical, you're probably more apt to show them scenes from it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Or songs. Yeah.
Or songs, exactly. Or songs from it. And as much as this shoots me in the foot, I really can't think of a movie that has more rewatchable segments than Singing in the Rain. Honestly, The Producers has some really fantastic rewatchable segments.
It really does.
But like Singing in the Rain, oh my God. You got Make 'Em Laugh, you got Good Morning, you got the Jump Out of the Cake, you've got the Moon Prayer, you got like literally all of it. And it passes so fast.
And it's like I can't even pick a favorite number either. Every time someone asks me, it's something different. I'm like, for sheer athleticism, Make 'Em Laugh. For the iconography of the actual like beauty of cinema plus vocals and dance, it's Singing in the Rain, the title number. But then it's also like, what do I want to rewatch the most? It's Good Morning. So it's like so many things, and that's why it's so tough, to like decide a favorite number. But I think that helps my rewatchability in the Netflix and Chex Mix, because it's like every scene you watch, no matter time of day, there's always going to be a number for it. And I feel like every number at any time of day for me works, but it's especially this every number has its own unique style and tone, like I talked about with the dance award, that makes it real watchable for me. And honestly, I cry at the end. I know it's not a sad film, but there's a cathartic sense of joy when she does turn around and she sees him and he's like, no, like, stop her, she's the one you should all be applauding. It's this moment of triumph. It rivals Rocky at the end of Rocky, and it rivals, Lin-Manuel Miranda winning for In the Heights at the Tonys, where they hoist him up. Like, moments like that. Roberto Benigni standing on the chairs at the Oscars when he wins his award. Like, moments like that where it's just like we're celebrating someone's art and they're at their purest and happiest moment of their life. And that gets me emotional. And it's an emotion that I like to revisit. I like to cry often. Whereas West Side Story, I think it's like,
1,000,000%.
it's you're crying because you're sad and you've got to cry of sadness over and over. So.
Yeah, I adore West Side Story. It's a brilliant piece, and there are bits that I'll rewatch all the time, like Officer Krupke or the fight sequences or America.
I have it right here.
He's got it right there. He's got it on Blu-ray. But I think just in terms of quote-unquote rewatchability, if I'm being honest to the Netflix and Chex Mix scale, and I have to be, it's my job, I think I have to give it to Singing in the Rain. So Dill takes this one. Ding, 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 ding.
This is the one, I think, of all the film offs so far, this I think is one of the most meaningful to us both as theater people and musical theater people and movie people. But getting to fight my favorite film of all time on film off and win is just such a good feeling. So thank you, Krosby. I had a blast. I'm honored to take this victory. I was talking earlier with my roommates. I was like, he's gonna pick a good. I was worried you might pick like a deep cut, but I was like, wow, he's picking West Side Story. This is gonna be tough, but. Alas, here we go. Let's recap this. Most iconic movie musical, the Dylan Dance Award, went to a series flip because both styles of dance are so unique and comparable and beautiful. It went to Singing in the Rain. The Krosby Krooner Award went to the singers of Singing in the Rain.
Yes,
the Showstopper Award, however, went to the ensemble of West Side Story. The Head Turner Award for the best influence on the art of movies and musicals alike went to West Side Story. And then the Netflix and Chex Mix scale went to the endlessly rewatchable, wickedly talented Singing in the Rain. Had to fit that in there because, John Travolta, he's been in a movie musical that was fairly iconic. So
the wickedly talented.
I do want to point out, we're talking about song and dance. We both went to musical theater school, and if I have a platform to talk about it, I will. One of my first dance teacher who taught me how to open my feet in first position, how to walk with my right and left feet and not two right feet, two left feet, taught me how to walk like a human and dance a little bit. Rashawn Holloway unfortunately passed away a few years ago. He was my first dance teacher. I have a picture here to show. I'm actually the one. He's the one all the way up in the air. He's the one who you can very much tell is the dancer. And there I am.
Yeah, the fantastic.
If you look below his legs, the kid with the backwards baseball cap in the back is me. It's my first dance recital in middle school even. So that was I honor my victory for Singing in the Rain to Rashawn. That's up there. this is a very meaningful fight for me and for both of us as musical theater people, and I wanted to shout him out. Before we get to our next topic, which Krosby will tell us in a second what it is, we are going to talk about your picks for best iconic movie musical. And this was fun because so many people had so many different picks from our decades, from like this year, from a few years ago, as most iconic, because iconic can mean so many things for different people.
Different things.
That's why we break it down into a rubric, because influence is not all it is. We went more for the realm of like influence, but they might have gone more for what they just find the most enjoyable. So, Krosby, would you be surprised of any films if they popped up here?
Well, I'll tell you what. When I reposted the questionnaire, my buddy Kevin wrote me, and he said, "Sound of Music is the GOAT."
Okay. What are your feelings on Sound of Music?
I was not necessarily surprised, but I was just like, wow, you're like a guy my age. I wouldn't expect that answer from you. That's great.
Yeah. So I'll just kick it off right now. Our buddy Landon, who is actually in the room next to me.
Right.
In the next room, not in the room next to me, but in the next room. He I assume jokingly, but maybe he meant it truthfully, says, "Long live cats."
Ooh, Jellicles are. Jellicles do.
I did chat with him before the show, and he did say Annie. Annie is one of the most influential and iconic, so I can't argue with that. That's a good pick. My mom was on the same bandwagon and said Cats. Just kidding. She said my favorite is probably still Grease. I stop and watch every time it's on. Grease, another one, especially for our parents' generation. That is definitely a great pick. Yeah. Kelsey, also on the same wavelength, says Cats. Ha 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 ha. Just kidding.
Oh my goodness! Everyone today, everybody's a comedian.
Those are the only three cats, I believe. The only three cats. And then she says, "It's got to be Grease, right?" Ignoring how problematic it is now, of course. I mean, yeah, there are elements that are problematic. Changing your appearance for someone, but
Grease is weird. If you watch it again, you'll be like, "Oh, this is weirder than I thought."
But it's iconic, especially in terms of getting people excited about going to musicals and liking musicals for that era. So actually, my mom and Kelsey made the same joke. Cats, just kidding, Grease. Manny says Mamma Mia is up there. Another fun one. I mean, that's a really great one for our generation, too.
I enjoy the movie of Mamma Mia because it's basically just like, okay, we're going to let Streep do her thing. And I'm like, all right.
And setting it in Greece doesn't hurt it.
It's
pretty beautiful. Our good old Davey, who's also in a room near us.
What does he give us?
He says, I feel like it has to be Wizard of Oz.
Wiz of Oz.
The most influential movie of all time, maybe. My brother Jake also says Wizard of Oz. Sheldon says 1997 Cinderella starring Brandy and Whitney Houston. Another great one, especially for of course African American representation as well.
Yeah, of course.
Great musical as well. Roger and Hammerstein. Hannah says, has to be Sound of Music. A great pick as well.
Music, there you go.
Charlie says it's got to be Singing in the Rain or West Side.
Boom! He's on the same page.
Charlie, you have a time machine, my good man. Here's someone that none of us follow. I don't know how they found the poll, but thank you for getting here. Speed Queen says The Black Crook, which obviously is not a movie, but it is a musical. It is the first musical ever made. So,
how about that?
So thank you for shouting that out. I mean, people who don't know as much musical theater history as two people who studied it probably don't know what The Black Crook is.
Someone would write that.
Yeah, Krosby, do you want to explain what The Black Crook is?
So The Black Crook, in theory, is like the first musical, kind of. It is, yeah. Very odd, protracted, kind of hours-long experience about, I believe, a man who made a deal with the devil. There was ballet, but I believe it was not related to the show. It was just like a break in the midst.
Did you, our freshman year, I know I went on a field trip to see
I didn't go.
Okay, there was a weird, in the middle of the East Village, there was this weird staging of The Black Crook that I had no idea what was going on the whole time, but it was this meaningful thing because it was the first time it had ever been revived since ever or whatever. I don't even know. So The Black Crook, the first musical. Hey, Toy Story is one of the most influential Pixar films. Iron Man is one of the most influential MCU films. Black Crook can certainly be one of the most influential musicals.
I'm not mad at it.
Yeah. Jason says High School Musical. Again, a
very
generational
for
thing.
A lot of people. Never been my cup of tea, but like very much people in like my siblings group, which is like, like 6 to 10 years older than we are. I feel like it was very big for them.
I was gonna say I'm personally a High School Musical 2 guy myself, but Rachel actually also says High School Musical always. So again, generational.
Well,
man.
There you go.
I love it. It's
gives the people what they want.
Christina says Mamma Mia. Max says Wizard of Oz. Says another one for Wizard of Oz. Maggie says Dreamgirls. Another great one. Jennifer Hudson got her Oscar for that.
Classic.
Lori here, we're throwing it back. White Christmas. Great movie musical
and action.
And a great Christmas movie as well. Nina, my sister, says Hairspray. Hopefully soon to be Dear Evan Hansen. She's a big Dear Evan Hansen fan. I hope the movie's good.
It's coming soon.
Trailer, I liked it. Some people didn't, but
Ben Platt's hair is wild. His hair is wild.
That's what I noticed first. I was like, what is going on?
It is just like, whoa. Like I saw it.
I do think some people complaining about the age, I'm like, give it like 2 minutes into the movie, and I think people will start to forget the fact that he looks a little older. I think it's the hair that's going to be the thing that takes me out of it sometimes, but I'm still excited for it.
I'm gonna be interested to see what they do with old Benny P. We're gonna see. I'm excited. I'm excited to see that movie. It'll be cool.
Ben says West Side Story, so he's on your train.
Good choice. Ben. Good choice.
Lauren says Into the Woods. Yeah, another great movie musical adaptation.
One of my favorite musicals ever.
Yeah, if we're talking just like straight up musical, that's like top 5 for me. Yeah,
agreed. Easily.
And lastly, Gavin, who is giving us each a point here. He says most iconic, Singing in the Rain.
Okay.
Best, West Side Story. So
wow, that's a hot take, yeah.
So Charlie and Gavin are time traveling. They're Doc and Marty. They're time traveling, and they know what we were gonna pick, and they wanted to appease both judges. So.
They do their jobs well.
But thank you guys so much for sending in your poll suggestions. I know I put up the poll today, the day we're recording it, because I was like, oh, wait, we have to poll you guys.
And we got lovely answers.
Oh, such good answers. I mean, I even have some more jotted down that I even was toying between as well. Obviously, West Side Story, Wizard of Oz were my other 2 backups. Fiddler on the Roof, a great movie musical.
Oh, Fiddler on the Roof is awesome.
Sound of Music. 2 animated musicals, which I think do count. Lion King and Beauty and the Beast are 2 that shaped me as a singer, actor, whatever.
Those are really good picks.
A cult classic, Rocky Horror Picture Show, was something I toyed around with.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then 2 newer musicals that I think have really shaped this generation of movie musicals. Moulin Rouge and La La Land are 2 great ones.
Yeah.
So
I don't think you can get much more influential than those.
And we'll see how In the Heights does too, because I think I very much liked it. Did you see it yet, Krosby?
Yeah, I saw it. I enjoyed it. I thought that it was, and I don't mean this as a bad thing, but I thought that it was very, like, it made the choice to kind of like be all over the place and be like wild and crazy. And I thought that was interesting, but I don't know. I think I'm going to be interested to watch it like a couple of times. And then once people are doing productions of In the Heights after quarantine and stuff, that's when I feel like I'll have more of a real opinion on it, because I'll be seeing those shows and then I'll have something to compare it to, because I've only ever seen a bootleg of the original.
Right. Yes. Same here. I didn't get to see it on Broadway, unfortunately, but I liked it a lot too. So again, movie musicals are not dead. I mean, we're getting so many this year. Also, we're getting Dear Evan Hansen, like you said, Spielberg's West Side Story. Tick, Tick, Boom. Yes. Oh my gosh. And we're also getting the one from England. Everybody's talking about Jamie, which is a big show on the West End.
Yeah.
They are making a adaptation, I believe, for Amazon.
They're making 13 a movie too. 13's coming.
Exactly. In the next few years as well. Wicked, I think, is slated to come out in a few years.
Right. Wicked is slated to come out.
So a lot of great movie musicals coming. I mean, I hope this is a resurgence. I hope we get a lot more, because I think over the past few years, we got Into the Woods, we got La La Land, Greatest Showman, but I think this year we're getting like 4 or 5, and that's just so exciting. And Bo Burnham's Inside, if you count it. So
true. Yeah, fair point. It's music based.
So Krosby, why don't you tease next show for everyone for our 4th of July special? 2 days early, it'll be on July 2nd. But
yeah, because I feel like that was also the day that the Declaration was actually signed.
Maybe.
I could be totally wrong, but I feel like
I
it
don't
might have
remember.
been signed early. Okay, anyway. So Dylan and I went on a little mental association journey. We said, okay, the 2nd of July. Well, the 2nd of July is like the 4th of July. The 4th of July is an American holiday. Maybe an American theme type movie. Maybe a movie about the presidents. But presidents is kind of narrow. So we decided to expand it. For our 2nd of July special, we will be doing specifically films, our favorite film, on a world leader.
World leader. So why don't you rattle off just a few examples of, not films, but world leaders that you might see?
You could be dealing with world leaders like Abraham Lincoln, George Washington, John Adams. You could be dealing with the Iron Lady, Margaret Thatcher. You could be dealing with William Wallace in ancient Scotland. Ancient Middle Ages Scotland.
Yeah.
You got all sorts out there. You know?
From all over the globe. We don't want to be...
Even
we want to
Scotland, if that's your thing.
Yeah, we want to be inclusive of everyone. 4th of July is a holiday for us, but we have viewers all over the place. We don't want to just make you all watch us celebrate American holidays. That's boring. We're going to celebrate the whole world on an American holiday.
Exactly.
Make it fun. So, we'll be talking about the best movie about a world leader.
Yeah, that's going to be a good one. There are a lot of movies out there.
And also the queens. All the queens. There's so many movies about queens and kings.
All the kings, all the revolutionary leaders.
I'm assuming lions don't count when we're talking about kings.
We'll brainstorm it.
We'll sidebar it.
We'll talk.
But anyway, this has been a very fun discussion, just of movie musicals, and of course these 2 movie musicals that it means so much to us. I have the Blu-ray here, as I said. I didn't forget about him. I love him, but he's our loser. Saint and Reign's our winner today. The Blu-ray's still packed up in one of these boxes. I've got all my packing boxes. I'm still unpacking them. That was just the one on top. But Krosby, where can they find you on the internet?
Well, they can find me on Instagram at KrosbyJRoza. Where can they find you, Dill?
You can find me at Dylan_Randazzo on Twitter. You can also find me, I think the same handle on my Letterboxd, where I'm posting movie reviews for things written. And then if you want to see video movie reviews and all sorts of shows like this one, you can watch us on the Dill Pickle Movie Network. If you're listening to us on audio, give us a review. 5 stars is our preference, but if you feel less, that'd be fine. As long as you give us a review, let us know how you like the show. If you are an international listener, which I've seen we do have, please tell us your favorite world leaders for next time and your favorite movie musicals for this time. We love to see the interaction. Of course, head to my Instagram. It's in the bio of the video. I don't have it written right now. I should put it on the screen, but for the polls, so you can tell us your favorite world leader movie for the next show. It's always fun doing this. Later today, you're getting this on Friday. Later today, you will get a review for Luca, which is dropping on Disney Plus, the new Pixar movie. I will have a review for it in a little while. I have to watch the movie. While you all are watching this video, I will be watching the movie and prepping a review, filming a review, and we'll have a review out for you later today. Any last words, Krosby?
Love you, Dill. Always good to see you.
Always good to see you.
Thanks for watching, folks.
Yes, thanks for watching. Always fun talking musicals. Maybe Krosby and I, if we hit a certain amount of viewers and listenerships and likes, maybe we'll put on our own 2-man virtual musical for y'all.
Almost certainly.
One of these days. Maybe we'll run like a what do you call it? A telethon type thing where if we get a certain amount of likes or subscribers, we will put on our own 2-man show.
Yeah, exactly. I'll be up there in a blazer in front of a wall of phones. So it'll be like, hey guys, we're all working with phones.
And the slight little streaming delay, so when we sing together, one of us will be slightly behind. It'll be great. Anyway, thank you all for joining. We'll see you next time. Peace out.